Welcome to the World's Fair of 1939. Nations of the world showcase all of the new technology expected for the future of man, such as this robot and this time capsule. But the wonder that would prove most important.
After 10 years of experiment, television, first shown to the public at the World's Fair, now takes its place as a new American art and industry. With the inauguration of regular television broadcasts from NBC, one of the RCA services, set owners in metropolitan New York enjoy the novel experience of receiving pictures through the air.
After World War II, television stations start broadcasting in New York City, and then followed by Los Angeles. By the 1950s, every major city had some form of TV broadcast. KDYL-TV was the first broadcaster to set up shop in Salt Lake City, Utah, on April 19, 1948. KDYL covered most of the Wasatch Front with its signal. 80% of Utah's population was served. But what about the other 20%, those who didn't live within the transmitter's range? Well, they saw this. Television relies on radio waves, which behave a lot like visible light. If there's a mountain between your station's transmitter and your receiver, the likelihood of getting good reception is greatly reduced. In a state famous for its mountains, this creates a huge problem. The solution was a simple one, but it was not going to be easy to implement. Communities could use devices called repeaters, which pick up a distant television or radio signal and rebroadcast a newer, stronger signal. By using a chain of repeaters, the signal from Salt Lake City could be extended throughout all of Utah and allow people living in rural towns to enjoy the same entertainment the big city received. Some locals began experimenting with a type of repeater called a booster, which has a receiver on one side of a mountain and a transmitter tuned to the same channel on the other side. This process didn't produce a very good picture, and when the FCC learned of these boosters, they asked the local groups to take them down since they can cause interference with the original signal. The second option was to try another method of repeating TV called translating. Unlike a booster, a translator would pick up a weak signal and rebroadcast it on a different channel so it didn't interfere with the original. So if channel 5 is weak in your area, a translator might rebroadcast it on channel 6 for improved results. The man that lives here has done the most for securing all of Utah's right to free over-the-air television, and done more than his fair share of work with TV repeaters. His name is Kent Parsons.
I'm Kent Parsons, and I've worked with television translators in the state of Utah and other areas of the United States for 52 years.
Kent became interested in TV in 1955 after working with his Uncle Mac. Uncle Mac had the ambition to bring TV to his hometown of Monroe, and in 1956 they went into the foothills to find a receiver site for the town.
We went into the mountaintops east of Monroe looking for signals from Salt Lake, which is like 170 air miles. And in the summer there, we did locate up at the 8,700 foot level KSL. And so he got quite excited about being able to find that signal. It's 3.5 miles up and over very rough terrain. But Sevier County had a referendum before the people for the county to get involved in producing television repeaters into this valley. And the commissioners decided to go ahead, and they would pay me $2 an hour plus a little bit for my Jeep if I would begin to run some tests. A fellow who had a radio shop in Richfield was to help me. He made one trip up there in the snow and never did go back. He figured that was no good, and working in the mountains all my life, why, nothing new to me. So I started running tests off there with a Maytag engine and generator, belt-driven generator. And sometimes I would get down and the engine would quit before I ever got home. because it took me a little over an hour to get back down. But on one Halloween night of 1957, I had an antenna laying on the lawn out here. I don't know why it was laying there, and I run a lead in and into that little TV set, and lo and behold, we had a picture.
Kent had made his first victory, but he still had a long way to go. Eventually, after much experimentation, the repeater was installed successfully.
At the same time, the guy that had the local cable system in Richfield was feeling pressure that he was having people drop off his cable systems and going to the antenna. And so he became very upset. And about somewhere around a week before Christmas, people started buying TV sets because they could get free television, didn't have it. And anyway, his cable didn't come over to Monroe. And our signals was going back clear into Richfield, and he got very uptight about it because he figured the county was going in competition with private enterprise. And so then he went to the Forest Service and said that we were operating illegally without license on U.S. Forest Service land, and we would have to shut down. This was just a few days before Christmas, and people had bought TV sets for Christmas. I met with the Forest Service and had them allow me to go a few days after Christmas so people could have television during Christmas. This they allowed me to do, and about 3 days after Christmas, somewhere around the end of the month of December, went up and shut everything down.
Well, Kent wasn't going to let all that work go to waste, so he got permission to set up on a private piece of land at the same elevation further south and began working on New Year's Day.
Because it was not on Forest Service land, the cable owner filed a $200,000 lawsuit against us, and that was in 1958.
The lawsuit was taken up by Sevier County, who employed Kent, and it went all the way to the state Supreme Court before the cable provider finally lost. Over the years, Kent started a family. His 2 sons followed in his footsteps, being television technicians, and Kent grew to prominence among other broadcasters. He worked with the University of Utah to get educational TV to rural areas, and helped draft legislation that would get repeater sites much-needed state support. Kent doesn't climb mountains quite as much anymore, but he still keeps busy. He's on a first-name basis with a good portion of the FCC, and since 1998 he's been working on a plan to convert all television broadcasts to digital. When he isn't investing his time in television, he has hobbies including perfectly restoring a Ford Model T which he has pieced together since the 1950s. Through Kent's work since 1955, and also the work of his colleagues in other counties, television coverage has gone from this to this. TV is still being threatened, though. The equipment to make the switch to digital is expensive, and a lot of translators will have to shut down without some form of government backing. Whatever changes in the future, we can be assured that Kent Parsons' work will be remembered, if not because of the challenges he faced, then by the fruits of his labor.